Greetings from Somerville.
Yes, indeed. Hello, everybody. We are here. This is absolutely one of my favorite podcast interviews because right now we are in Hawaii, the island of Oahu, with one of my best friends, Malu. Say hello, Malu.
Hello, Malu.
And Malu is 8 months pregnant. We are sitting in a car in Honolulu with the air conditioning going, and she is an absolute saint for agreeing to come and do this.
I parked under a tree. It's really hot.
It's very, very warm, so we're not going to keep her long. Tell us, what park are we in?
We're in Kaka'ako.
Kaka'ako, and I ask you that because I still can't pronounce. I've worked in Hawaii for a few years now, performing, and I still can't pronounce most of the places.
And I've noticed that when you were talking about food at lunch, you're like, that white square. Like, it has a name.
It's actually, sadly, very true. Like the white square for dessert. This is, the podcast has been about interviewing friends of mine that I find interesting, which you found absolutely flattering.
I did.
You said, I'm an interesting person.
Wow. Shocking as well.
Now, Malu, just to give some backstory, we've worked together professionally for a few years. I perform in Hawaii, and Malu is the cruise director on the cruise ship that bounces around the islands here, but also is a Hawaiian native from Hawaii, born and raised.
Yep.
And I am from New Jersey, technically part of the same country, the United States, but could not be further from each other on the planet, and in many ways culturally. People who come to Hawaii, well, most of us growing up in New Jersey, Hawaii is just a fictitious place. It's so far you just don't ever think of going. It's almost 11 hours of flying. But then those who do visit, and many people do, you come for a week, you see the beach, or you do whatever, and you leave. I've had the rare pleasure of getting to know the islands a little better and getting to know great people like Malu, and to learn more about what it's really about. And so that's why I thought it would be fun to have you and to talk about what it's really like to be from Hawaii, some of the great stories that you've had from growing up and everything. So that's why you're here.
Okay.
Everyone, welcome.
I was wondering, but now I know there's a purpose.
Why do you have a woman who's 8 months pregnant sitting in a car with the air conditioning going? What is this about?
100 degrees outside. It shows my love for Michael Somerville.
It really does. And we're going to keep this one nice and tight because we're going to get you home to your ice water and your air conditioning. But it's funny because growing up, first thing you notice is I grew up in Jersey, and a mountain was the Poconos and a beach was the Jersey Shore. Those are my definitions of mountain and beach. When you come to Hawaii, it is nothing like you've ever seen. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. I send my parents pictures all the time, and they keep saying that I'm an amazing photographer. And I keep saying, no, it has nothing to do with me. You can't take a bad picture here. When you grow up in a place this beautiful, do you go on vacation? Where else could you possibly go from here?
Well, when you grow up in Hawaii, you don't, everybody thinks you're constantly on vacation because you're in Hawaii, but the two interesting things. One is you actually don't go to the beach or go do all the fun stuff that you do when you're on vacation all that much. Like, that's something that you would do on your vacation. So if you had a holiday, if you had a vacation,
that makes sense. Yeah,
you don't go outer islands very often because Hawaiian Airlines is super expensive. When you're going inner islands, you don't go to the mainland very often unless you have friends there or family, or if you're going to Disneyland, which is super
or Las
exciting.
Vegas, I've learned.
Oh yeah, Las Vegas is called the 9th Island.
Is that what they?
Yes, that's the nickname. If I go to Las Vegas, I'll probably run into more people that I know than I would at the supermarket. It's crazy. Downtown Las Vegas, it's insane. The last time I ran into like 3 elementary school teachers, a janitor.
That is hysterical. Well, now, because actually Hawaii is one of 2 states in the country that there is no legal gambling.
Yeah, there's no gambling.
Okay, and funny you should say that because the last time I saw you before this was in Las Vegas.
I know.
I was performing, and you texted me, said, "Are you in Vegas?" I said, "Yeah." And you said, "So am I." Your entire family had just picked up and gone for the weekend.
Yeah, my family goes for every every Super Bowl, and I'll see more people there than I might at a family luau. So I went to go see my family. They might live down the street, but I know I'll see them Super Bowl Sunday in Las Vegas, downtown. Yes.
That's all right. Well, I feel a little more Hawaiian then because I'm often there too. But now you said luau, which is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. Some of the awesome traditions, because as a dude from New Jersey, I think of Hawaii. I think of leis and luau's, and that's about the end of the cultural insights I have. But luau's are really a thing.
They really are. There's usually not girls in coconut bras. Okay. I will say that.
Darn.
But, no, I mean, in Hawaii, we have a lot of we're very focused on ohana, which is family. And so there's 2 big luau's, or actually 3 big luau's in our life. The first one is your first birthday luau, which you will not remember, but it is a tradition in the Hawaiian Islands. Traditionally, like many years ago, the Hawaiians the first birthday luau was kind of a celebration because the baby made it past the first year.
Okay.
And by the first year, you have a personality for the child, and so they kind of settle on a more solid name as opposed to like nicknames you might have had as an infant. And so that tradition's kind of rolled over to having a big first birthday luau. So that's a big one. Your high school graduation is a big luau.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So the way we would have just a big party.
Oh yeah, my graduation luau was in my grandmother's backyard, and there were 400 people there.
400
yes,
people.
I spent all day welcoming people and saying hello and stuff, and family and friends came through, and it was mainly just family. And my mom's from California, so it was mainly just my dad's side of the family. So
your dad is Hawaiian.
My dad is Hawaiian.
Okay.
And I realized how funny it was when I was still writing my thank you cards on the plane going to the mainland for college, and I'm writing thank you cards with money isn't often something given at a luau because they know how expensive they are, if you're gonna have 400 people there. But I also got things like dear Uncle Neil, thank you for the half a steer. It was delicious. Dear Uncle Lika.
For the half a steer.
Steer, yes. We roasted, beef, which was a half a steer, which apparently you could buy. I also thanked somebody for a few people gave me pigs. I got a lot of chickens.
Are you serious?
I mean, I didn't have to kill them or anything. They were dead. But
well, that's almost worse. What are you supposed to do? A high school graduate? What do you do with a bunch of dead pigs and chickens?
It was all for the party. So
okay.
It was so they just have a spit up there. They're rotating, they're cooking it. It's being
so it's kind of like when I show up to a party with a 6-pack of beer. It's really for me.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but see, in Hawaii, you wouldn't just show up with a 6-pack. You'd have a whole cooler because you can't make it just for you. Because as soon as you show up with that 6-pack, all 6 would be gone.
It's all gone, right?
So if you want to see more, you have to bring more.
And sometimes by the time I get to the party, there's only 4 actually in the things.
Check your pockets.
The old cargo shorts.
Never know what you have there.
Now, you referenced the sense of family, and that's definitely something that I've felt since I've been here. There is a strong sense amongst Hawaiian for family, and families stay together. I mean, in some cases, literally, even after school, they tend to live together in some cases, or close by, which is lovely. Is that a pervasive thing throughout the Hawaiian culture, or?
It is. It is. You're very. I mean, I actually just read an article talking about how Hawaii is one of the safest and healthiest states, and I think that part of that is attributed, and it even said in the article, due to family, because your grandparents, your parents, you're raised with a very strict, you respect your elders kind of thing, and so it's if you're an embarrassment, you're not just embarrassment to yourself, you're embarrassment to your whole family. And so it's everybody will kind of step in to put you back into line, so to say. But living together, there's a lot, especially now, there's a lot of Hawaiian families that live together, but that's mainly because it's so expensive out here. It's you can only, buying a house in Hawaii, you have to have $1 million. And most, starting off couples don't have $1 million.
Don't have $1 million bucks, or even couples that have been together a while, yeah.
I know, and so it just makes more sense for them to live with their families, and you take care of your family, and
right.
And you tend to like to live around your family, or you move to the mainland. people will move to the mainland as well.
Now, how is that view? Well, first of all, that makes me curious because exactly things are expensive here. Because generally, if it's not, if you don't make it here, and not a whole lot of stuff is made here, it needs to be shipped in.
Yeah.
And that just ranks up the money. What is the view of the mainland? Being from here, growing up here, what is your? Did you have a sense of connection to the main 48 states? Do you? Because when I watch the local news here, you feel like you're in another country. I mean, it's just there's stuff that we never talk about in our local news. It's about volcanoes and things like. I mean, not literally, but actually it is actually literally. And it just feels like you're in a different place. And how?
I think it's the same thing for us. I mean, it's the mainland's really far away. I mean, the closest place to go would be California, which is a 5 to 6 hour flight.
Yeah.
And so
which is the time it takes to get all the way from New York to LA,
exactly.
the entire country. Yeah.
So when you were asking before about like vacations, it's like for us, it's not. I mean, when I went to college in the mainland and stuff, it's you guys jump in a car and you go a couple of states over and you go see things. And for us, we don't do that because that's not possible. Obviously,
you drive into the ocean.
Yeah. I mean, we camp, we hike, we do all that kind of stuff. We surf, we swim, we dive. We're very outdoorsy kind of people, but the mainland it's almost like, that's why we call it the mainland, which is the main island, which is where that kind of comes from. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it's like we're the smaller islands. Okay. You guys the big one.
We're the big island, right? Okay.
And so for us, it's like how Hawaii is a foreign place to you. It's kind of that way for us too. So even kids that go away to college, it's become more common in the last like 20 years or 30 years, but it was really difficult before, and it was something that you have to really like plan, earn, and then it's intimidating even going to college because when I went to college in Washington State, and it was a culture shock for me. And I was somebody who, my mom is from California, so I'd been to the mainland many times. Like I'd been to California.
Yeah.
It was very close to my mom's family. So I knew what to expect, but it was still quite different culturally for me to adapt to it.
Yeah, I would think. Yeah, and you and I are both from a time we can remember pre-internet and pre-cable to a degree.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time where that you weren't as connected with everything that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And I imagine that for you, exactly, if you grow up in Hawaii before, you can turn on MTV or just do. It's a sense of being even more isolated from some of the things that are happening.
Oh yeah, it's like you're very isolated. And in Hawaii, we don't have seasons, so we don't like.
There are no seasons.
There are no seasons. I mean, our fashion is the same year round.
Sunny and 80s. Literally, the weatherman must have the easiest job. He just sunny and 80s, and then he takes the rest of the year off and just play that tape every day.
Yeah, certain times of years, maybe rain.
Yes, a little rain, but then it's gone. It'll just go away, and then
Yeah, when I went to college, my roommate in college was like appalled by my clothes choices because she was so much more fashionable than I am, and I had like no concept of fashion. I still don't really have one.
You look lovely.
I really can't. Oh, you're sweet. It was so bad. Like, I mean, I went shopping with my mom and her sisters, who were obviously older, and they bought me stuff for college to keep me warm. I mean, I'd wear sweatpants under my jeans because I was cold, and my long underwear wasn't warm enough. And so my friend was so appalled by it that she actually like went shopping for me and brought me back all those clothes. She's like, I never want to see that outfit again.
Well, I believe it because I was here once, and there was a quote-unquote cold front that moved in through Maui, and the weatherman said, "Bundle up tonight, low of 68." And I said,
oh my gosh.
And people were crying and fleeing for blankets, and what are we going to do?
Oh yeah, that's when we bring out like the jeans and the winter coats. And, like, I mean, it gets intense here.
It is. But I think you mentioned the healthy lifestyle and the general, kind of just happiness. But I imagine that has a lot to do with it. It's such an outdoors place. It's such an active island. I mean, people, you hike, you bike, you swim, you surf. There's just so much to do. I imagine that the perfect weather is a big reason.
Yeah, no, it's always beautiful over here, which I mean, like, which when you're 8 months pregnant and it's super hot, you want to shoot yourself sometimes. No.
Right now, it's not ideal for you. Yeah.
But no, I do have to say, I mean, I've been very blessed. My dad works for an airline, and my mom was from the mainland, so unlike other Hawaiian kids growing up, I kind of grew up with a bigger sense of the world, and so I got to see a lot of the world. Like, I traveled a lot of the world, which I lived in different countries. I did a lot of really cool things, and so I got like. I got a different perspective, but Hawaii has always been home for me.
Yeah.
And it's not just my family. It was like one of those things that, like, when I was flying back from, whether it's Australia, Brazil, Egypt, I'm like, I just start feeling Hawaii when I'm there, and it really is paradise. I mean, when I was in Australia, I was hiking through the outback with a bunch of kids from England and Canada, and they were just like, we were in the Northern Territory, and they were just just amazed by the beauty of these waterfalls and rainforests. And I was standing there looking around being like, is this all you got? Like, really? I've jumped off waterfalls bigger than that, and there's no crocodiles in the water. So, I mean, it made me realize how spoiled we really are out here, and it's like, you don't really realize it until you leave.
Yeah.
Like, how much, like, beauty we're surrounded by.
It really is stunning. And I mean, just as the way I first described it when I came here is, if you just picture, I mean, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, just the middle of nowhere, this pristine, beautiful ocean with sunshine and warm weather and everything, if you just planted a couple of islands, and how could it not be gorgeous? Everywhere you look, there's just pristine water. It is. It's hard to describe. Now, of the islands, there are 7, 8 main islands. Is that what they?
There's 8.
There's 8 islands. Okay, and that's inhabited to a degree,
yes.
or okay, right. So that's
one's not, but there's 8 main islands.
Okay. Yeah. Are there personalities amongst those islands? And growing up on the mainland, as you say, I'm from the Northeast. There's a certain personality, and then the South has a brand and even an accent. The Midwest, and we have different regions, and people do have different accents and sort of different vibes about them. Are there amongst the islands differences?
Yeah, I think that different islands have different kinds of reputations and so forth. I mean, one thing you'll find on Oahu, which is the main island, I mean, 80+% of Hawaii's population lives on this one tiny island.
Yeah.
So this is the big city. So, like, when you go to the other islands, when you go to the Big Island, you go to Molokai, Lanai, their population is so much smaller, Kauai, that they're like planning a trip to Oahu is like you're planning it. And I realized that with my friends from those islands before. It's like you plan it to go shopping, you plan it to like do big kinds of things that you might if you lived like outside of upstate New York and you were going into New York City.
This is the big trip.
I'm gonna do this, so I have to get this and this done while I'm over there, kind of thing. Yeah, but the outer islands, while it has less people, it's so much, I feel like the outer islands are so much more beautiful. I mean, I'm from Oahu, so I know all the beautiful places that you can go to. There's still a lot of beauty here, but there's so many people here that it's hard to have like those moments on your own kind of beauty.
Exactly. No, truly, you can get lost on some of those other islands. I mean, you can just disappear and not have another soul for miles. I was in Kauai last week, and we drove myself to Waimea Canyon just in the middle of the day, and then just kept roaming out from there. And I was literally I didn't see another car, I didn't see another person. I was just like, this is hard to do in this day and age, to find a gorgeous place where there's not another soul.
Yep.
But it's more possible in Hawaii, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Now, you've mentioned one of my favorite stories is about your parents. You mentioned your mom's from California,
yes.
and your dad is Hawaiian, and how they met is knowing you is just a perfect. It makes perfect sense. If you wouldn't mind sharing your parents' story.
Well, my mom was in her late teens, early 20s. She moved to Hilo on the Big Island, which is where my grandfather had moved to with her sisters. And my dad worked for an airline, so my parents actually met at a bar. My mom, as she likes to say, had been drinking Stingers since noon that day. And so they met, like a group of them went out to breakfast. My dad asked my mom out on a date, and they had planned it, and then she realized that she had like promised herself to this date on the other side of the island in Kona, and it would have been an overnight date with the man she had just met and wasn't totally sure she remembered his name. And so she stood him up. It was my dad's cousin's wedding, and my mom stood him up, and because she was not that type of girl to go on an overnight with somebody she didn't know.
Okay.
My mom was a very good girl.
Especially you don't even know the name.
Yeah. So 6 months later, or a few months later, she moved to San Francisco. I think it was San Francisco. She moved back to the mainland. She got a job, and her roommate started dating a flight attendant and set her up on a blind date. And so like 6 months after my mom stood my dad up, she gets set up on a date, and she goes and meets this guy, and it's my dad.
It's with the same guy.
With the same guy. My dad shows up. He's like, "Hey, you stood me up." And she's like, "Oh crap." But then I guess that, like, you know, like, it was the beginning. They had 3 kids. My parents actually, speaking
She
of,
learned his name?
She did learn his name.
Okay.
And sometimes I wonder when she calls him Sweetie if she still knows it. I'm kidding. but yeah, but when my parents got married, this is a good example. I mean, times have changed, obviously, but like when my parents got married in 1970, they had 900 people at their wedding reception. 900 people. And
all relatives?
you know, it's funny because in Hawaii you don't necessarily know who your relatives are sometimes, because we call everybody auntie and uncle. And so it wasn't until I became an adult that I started finding out that like one of my uncles wasn't actually a blood uncle. He was like a neighbor's son's best friend who my dad had grown up with at some point, or some lady who once lived next to him's ex-boyfriend who became friends with the family. Like, I don't know, like I started learning things about my family that I didn't even know. Like, and even to this day, we had a family reunion. I'm like, oh, so we're not related.
Yeah, and learning things about people who aren't your family.
Yeah. And then other people who are that I didn't even know.
We're related. That makes the dating scene kind of difficult.
I don't date local. Yeah. Tends to be dangerous sometimes.
Yeah, who am I allowed to go out with here?
You have to bring out your family trees first and be like, so this is where I came from. Okay, we're good.
Exactly. You're gonna get a blood sample here before we.
Yeah. In high school, I kept having people come up to me, and they're like, "Oh, you're a Punohu." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a Kaka. We're our dads." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." I'm like, check that one off the list.
You're good. This is good. Exactly. Yeah. You didn't have Ancestry.com back then either. You had to check up on everyone. But go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say there would be nothing worse than showing up at a party and having somebody you were supposed to go on a date with be there.
The family reunion, Christmas. Now you, along though with that sense of, and I'll wrap up. I know you're getting tired here, and just, but you, along with that sense of family, community, people who are family and not technically family, you have a great story about your block. You grew up in a lovely. I've been to your home, and it's this great little street which just has a great sense of neighborhood. It reminds me of where I grew up in Jersey, a quiet little neighborhood, residential, where everyone seems to know each other. And you tell this. Go ahead. I think you know where I'm going.
Well, there's so many stories.
Well, people seem to know each other. Seem to come over and poke their nose in your business. And
no, I mean, like growing up, my street was a new division that was built, and so it was all young families, and so they all it was a lot of fun because all the parents would get together. We'd have block parties. We'd have Christmas parades with Clydesdale horses.
You actually had Clydesdale horses.
We actually did have one of our
just blocked off the street. No, not talking to the cops or proving anything with the town. You just blocked off your own street.
Yeah, we just blocked off our street. One of the guys on the street worked for Budweiser, so they were Budweiser Clydesdale.
So they got the Budweiser Clydesdale just to march down your street.
Yeah. I remember because Santa was throwing candy in his elves, and one of the elves beamed candy at my dad's eye, and he broke his contact, and we had to take him to the emergency room. It's a whole other story, but
usually it's the kids getting hurt on the block, but in your your case.
But yeah, there were we had, to this day, when I was a kid, Halloween's huge. I live on a cul-de-sac, so it's it's a dead-end street. And we used to, when we were kids, my dad likes making little bags of candy. He doesn't like handing out just candy, and so we would make 1,500 bags of candy, literally. I'm not exaggerating.
50?
And after we'd go through all those bags, because yes, we'd go through that many bags when I was a kid, my dad would make me and my brothers dump out our candy after we trick-or-treated. We could choose our favorite ones, and then he would re-gift the rest of the candy.
You have to give out your stuff?
Yeah, we'd have to give out our stuff, like when we ran out. I mean, now we don't have 1,500. I think last year we had 900.
You said 900 people come by for Halloween.
People come from town because our neighborhood's so safe, and they'll just park and they'll come down, and we have haunted houses on our street, and everybody hands out candy. So it's like if you live in an apartment building, you know, like you don't have a lot. This is like a street with houses close together where everybody's
part of it.
Yeah, and so that was kind of cool. But I think. Are you talking about the chicken story?
I just knew that there was fun stories about the street. The Clydesdales, I remembered the fact that you blocked off you just decided to block off your own block. You know, just
we did that. Yeah, we had
Oh, the chicken story. Was that when it was running around?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Let's leave our lovely listeners with the chicken story. I do remember this one.
You realize that was like quite like that like marked me, like scarred me.
That explains
deeply.
a lot in your
a lot of my fears evolved from this one story. Well, everybody was really close on our street, and as Michael said, like everybody knew what was going on with everybody else. So like a side story is when I had my first boy-girl birthday party, my neighbor was at our house with binoculars on the phone with my parents giving her play-by-plays of what was going on, which I didn't know at that time. I mean, I was turning like 12, 13. But I found out later when my brother started teasing me about the boys I danced with. And anyways, so when I was little, we would just play down, like we'd play down the street, like there wasn't a lot of cars. Everything was safe. You'd leave your door unlocked, and my mom would send us down to go find my brothers or find me or find my dad when it was time to go eat. So my mom's like, go get your dad, he's at Uncle Dana's house or one of our uncle's houses. So I went down to go get my dad, and I'm like skipping, I'm like in 3rd grade. Go down the side of the house, and I'm just singing some song to myself when all of a sudden a headless chicken comes running towards me with like blood squirting out of its neck. It was like out of a horror movie, and I started screaming and running, and I didn't know that my neighbor was like killing his chickens. Like I didn't know my dad was helping him. My dad came out because I'm like screaming all the way back up home. My dad's like, why'd you come down? I'm like,
just going down.
It was dinner time. We were having chicken. I'm like, oh God.
And the headless chicken just comes straight.
Yeah.
And to this day, I mean, she's shuddering as we speak right now.
I'm like clutching my hands together right now. Yes.
Well, that I can say has never happened to me in New Jersey. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, Hawaiian people, we really are. I mean, as much as there's like a lot of cheesiness that you see with Hawaii, with like the, like the aloha spirit and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of truth in it too. And it's one of the things I do have to say on a completely serious level is that Hawaiian families are very accepting. Yeah. They're very loving, and they're very open to things. Like as much as one of the big cultural shocks for me when I went to college was political correctness, because we're not politically correct here at all. And I mean, I guess we've become more so since I graduated from college, but it was like for Hawaiians, it's like you describe things. I mean, even place names describe what the place looked like. So you describe people by what they look like the big fat dude. Like I had an Uncle Fatty, Uncle Baldy, Uncle Fat Dan, Uncle Ugly. No, I'm serious. Like these were their names. Like this is what we call them as
kids. Did they answer to them?
Yes, they still do. And so it was like the concept of calling somebody whether you're black or white or Hawaii, calling somebody by their culture being offensive would never be offensive in Hawaii. If you're white, you're white. Like it doesn't mean that saying haole, which is it means like a white person in Hawaii, it doesn't mean that you're offensive, unless you're a bad person, then you take it that way,
Do I have a nickname in your house?
Well, We're tight, but I don't know if we're that tight.
I'm not Uncle anything yet.
No. I mean, like, you know, like, all these guys, none of these were names that were behind their back. These were all
just
names
to
they
their
knew.
face.
Yeah, I mean, my Uncle Fat Dan, I just saw him. I mean, I call him Uncle Dan now. I always felt uncomfortable with the
Uncle
whole
Fat
Fat Dan.
Dan?
You know, and
What if the man loses weight? Does it?
he's still Uncle Fat Dan.
He's still Uncle
Yeah.
Fat Dan.
He's still, yeah. I mean, my dad had he had one friend he called the White Rat.
You said friend, correct? He's a friend.
He was a really close friend. He was at our house all the time. Like, I didn't call him the White Rat because
It's a little too much. He's still trying to get over the headless chicken.
yeah, there's lines I had as a child. Okay, I preferred their first names, but I know,
White Rat.
who he's talking about
We know
when he
exactly
talks about
who the
it.
White
Yeah.
Rat is. So,
Yeah.
well, I'm glad at least that's not my nickname.
Not yet.
If we don't get you to some air conditioning soon, I think I could earn a weird.
I know.
But I can't think of, and you're absolutely right. In my time that I was about to spend here, well, our relationship and on the islands, I couldn't agree more. It's one of the most beautiful and most loving, accepting places. People
yeah.
are great. You've had me over to your house, and I can't wait to come back again. We eat like kings every time I see you. We eat and we laugh a lot. And I know that this is a big thing. So thank you for taking the time
Yeah.
to sit in the car and
And bake to talk about it.
let's finish you up so we can get this air conditioning back up.
Yeah.
This is Malu, everybody. And what do we say when we say goodbye in Hawaii?
Aloha ahui home.
That's beautiful. And what does it mean?
Until we meet again.
Aloha.
That's what you want me to say.
That's the only one I know.
Aloha.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to Greetings from Somerville. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, and listen to all 3 of my stand-up comedy albums for free on Spotify, Pandora, and SiriusXM. I'm Michael Somerville. Have a great day.
Greetings from